Sold to the highest bidder, my mother's choice. The auction I never saw coming. They say every woman remembers the day she got married. I remember mine too, but not for the dress, not for the flowers, and certainly not for the man. I remember it because I didn't even know I was getting married. It was a hot Tuesday afternoon in 1993, in the heart of Lagos. I was 23, job hunting and naive, still hopeful that life was just waiting for me to catch a break. My mother had called me home, her voice unusually soft over the payphone at the kiosk down the street. "Come back home today," she said. "We have a visitor." I had smiled then, thinking perhaps a distant uncle had returned from Port Harcourt with good news. Maybe even a small envelope to help us pay rent or buy Gary. But when I walked into our one-room apartment in Ajigono, I saw him. Chief. He wore a crisp white agbada and a gold wristwatch that looked like it could buy our entire compound. His belly bulged with wealth and arrogance, and when he smiled at me, I felt something twist in my stomach. "This one," he said to my mother, "she will do." I turned to Mama, expecting her to laugh, to brush off the insult, but she didn't. Instead, she nodded. "Yes, Chief. She's ready." I laughed, a confused, nervous chuckle. "Ready for what?" Mama didn't answer. Neither did Chief. Instead, a white envelope was placed on our rickety table. It was thick, stuffed with cash. And that was the moment everything shifted. I wasn't stupid. I knew money had power, but I never imagined it had the power to take me from my own body. That night, Mama explained, with lips tight and eyes dry, that I would be marrying Chief in 2 days. Not for love, but for survival. She said our rent was overdue, my younger brothers hadn't eaten meat in 3 weeks, and Papa's grave needed finishing. "It's just marriage," she said, like it was a simple cold I had to catch and recover from. "You'll be well taken care of." I remember staring at her, mouth open, heart breaking. "You sold me," I whispered. "You sold me, Mama." Her response haunts me to this day. "If I didn't sell you, hunger would have killed us all." That night I cried until I couldn't feel my face. I wasn't angry yet, not fully. I was just shocked. The betrayal hadn't sunk in. I kept thinking it was a nightmare. That Mama would come in, hold me, tell me it was all a test. But dawn came, and so did the tailor with lace fabric. I was dressed like a bride. But I felt like a prisoner. The registry was cold. Chief signed the papers like a man collecting a parcel. I was too numb to cry. Too ashamed to run. When the clerk said, "You may now kiss the bride," I flinched. But he didn't kiss me. He only patted my head like I was a new piece of property. That evening, we drove to his mansion in Lekki, a word I had only seen on NTA. He showed me my room, not our room, and said he preferred quiet wives. No honeymoon. No wedding night. Just silence, a locked door, and the smell of perfume that didn't belong to me. That was the night I truly understood what Mama had done. Not just selling me, but erasing me. And that was just the beginning. The price of bread and dignity. There are many kinds of prisons in this world. Some have iron bars. Others are built with silence. Chief's mansion was the latter. It was a 3-story house in Lekki, with marbled floors and chandeliers that looked like they could crush a man. Everything smelled expensive, imported leather, fine wine, and a kind of loneliness that clung to the air. But for all its riches, the house was cold. Chief had 4 wives before me. I learned this on my second day when I met Madam Inyola, his second wife, who ran the house like a queen mother. She took one look at me, sighed, and said, "You're number 5. Just don't be foolish." I was not his wife. I was an addition. In that house, no one spoke unless necessary. The other wives, though older than me, acted like ghosts, silent, moving through the halls like shadows. Chief was rarely home. When he was, he spent his nights in Madam Iniola's quarters, or sometimes the guest house where I suspected he kept a mistress. And me, I was a decoration. A doll he could dress in fine wrappers and parade at parties, but nothing more. At first, I thought this distance was a blessing. I had feared the nights most, but Chief had no interest in my body, at least, not yet. Instead, he treated me like a painting on the wall, admired from a distance, untouched, and ultimately ignored. But what I feared most was my mother's silence. For weeks, I waited for her to call or visit. To check if I was alive, if I had eaten, if I was happy. But she never did. When I finally gathered the courage to send a message through the house driver, I received a short reply. "This is your life now. Make it work." That was the moment the last piece of my heart broke. That night, I refused dinner. I sat in my room, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The girl in the glass looked like me, but her eyes were empty. Her skin, once full of life, now stretched like a mask over her bones. I was disappearing. And then came the moment I will never forget. One evening, I went downstairs to the dining hall. Madam Iniola sat at the head of the table, eating slowly, savoring every bite. There was chicken, steaming jollof rice, moi wrapped in leaves, and fruit juice in tall glasses. My stomach churned. I had barely eaten all day. As I reached for a piece of bread, a maid appeared beside me and whispered, "Madam said you cannot eat until Oga gives permission." I looked at Madam Iniola, expecting her to dismiss such nonsense. But she only smiled. I turned to the other wives. Not one of them met my gaze. I was a legal wife, but I was nothing. No status, no voice. Not even the right to touch the food in my own home. For the first time, I understood the weight of my mother's choice, not just the betrayal, but the curse she had placed on me. I was not just sold. I was bought. And I had no idea how I would survive it. A diary, a gun, and a stranger's kindness. I learned two things in Chief's house. Silence was a language. It could be used as a weapon, a punishment, or a shield. The walls had secrets, whispers of women before me, ghosts trapped in a cycle of wealth and misery. I found the diary by accident. It was a Sunday afternoon, and the house was unusually quiet. Chief had traveled, Madam Iniola was at a social event, and the other wives were locked in their rooms. Bored and restless, I wandered the hallways, tracing my fingers along the cold marble. That was when I noticed it, a small gap between the bookshelf and the wall in one of the guest rooms. Curious, I tugged at the shelf, and it shifted slightly. Behind it, a tiny compartment. And inside, an old leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed with time. The first entry was dated 1981. My name is Amina. I am 19 years old. Today, my father sold me to Chief for a bride price that could feed my family for a year. Mama says I should be grateful. I feel like I am drowning. I felt a chill run down my spine. Amina. I had never heard of her. None of the wives had mentioned a woman by that name. I flipped through the pages, my hands shaking. The words bled with pain, stories of loneliness, of being locked away, of Chief's unpredictable moods. But it was the last entry that made my breath hitch. If you find this, run. Before it's too late. The air in the room felt thick. My heart pounded. What happened to her? I searched the house records that night, bribing a maid to sneak me into the study. Chief kept files on everything, properties, investments, even past staff. But there was no mention of Amina. It was as if she had never existed. That's when I knew, this house ate women. And I would be next if I didn't escape. The next morning, I met Bola, the new housemaid. She was young, maybe 19, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She moved differently from the others, quick, alert, like someone who knew how to survive. I took a risk and whispered, "Have you ever heard of Amina?" Bola's eyes widened, then darkened. She shook her head quickly and muttered, "Don't ask about the dead." My blood ran cold. Dead? I had to get out. I told Bola everything. I don't know why I trusted her, but something in her eyes told me she had seen enough suffering to recognize my own. She told me about a back gate, one the security guards rarely checked. But there was a problem. I had no money, no identification, nothing. "You need something to trade," Bola said. "Something valuable." And that was when I remembered. Chief's gun. The plan was simple. That night, I would sneak into his study and take the gun. Bola knew a man, someone who could get me a fake ID and enough money to disappear. But nothing ever goes according to plan. Because that night, as I reached for the gun in Chief's desk, the door creaked open. And Chief was standing there, watching me. His face unreadable. His voice dangerously calm. "What do you think you're doing, my dear wife?" And just like that, the plan fell apart. Confrontation at Mama's doorstep. I froze. My fingers still clutched the edge of the drawer where the gun lay, cold and menacing. Chief took a slow step into the study, shutting the door behind him with an eerie calm. "You're not as smart as you think, girl," he said, voice low, dangerous. "Did you really believe you could steal from me and walk away?" I opened my mouth to speak, but the words never came. He walked over, and for the first time since I entered his house, he looked at me, not as a wife, not as a possession, but as a threat. "I've seen that look before," he murmured. "The same look Amina had." My breath caught. So he did remember her. "What did you do to her?" I whispered. His lips curled into a cold smile. "She tried to leave too." I backed away slowly. "Did you kill her?" He shrugged. "She left. That's all that matters. And so will you, but on my terms." Suddenly, the door swung open. It was Bola. She stood at the doorway, panting. "Chief, Madam Iniola is calling you downstairs. Urgent." Chief's eyes narrowed. He stared at her, then at me. "We'll talk later." He left. The moment the door closed, Bola rushed to me. "We need to go. Now." We fled that night. Through the back gate. Through the dark streets of Lekki. Into a waiting Kiki Bola had arranged with her cousin. I didn't know where we were going. I just knew I couldn't return to that house. We arrived at a small compound in Ajij hours later. Dirty, noisy, crowded, but alive. And I was free. The first person I called was my mother. Not to thank her. Not for comfort. But for war. She picked up on the third ring. "Mama," I said, my voice shaking, "I'm out." A pause. Then her sigh. "I thought you'd be grateful one day." "Grateful?" I backed. "You sold me. To a monster." "Sold," she hissed. "Do you think you know suffering? I raised 5 children after your father left us with nothing. I did what I had to do." "No," I said, tears running down my face. "You did what was easy. You traded me like property. And you still sleep at night." She was silent. But I wasn't done. "I'm coming to see you. You owe me the truth," back to my face. Then I hung up. I went to her the next day. The neighborhood hadn't changed. The same red dust. The same cracked windows. But the woman inside, she had aged. Her hair grayer, her shoulders hunched like she was carrying the sins of generations. She stood at the door when I arrived, wiping her hands on her wrapper like she wasn't expecting a storm. You look thin, she said quietly. You look guilty, I replied. We stood in silence, then stepped inside. The house smelled of pepper soup and old paint. On the wall were photos of our children, my siblings. All smiling. All safe. I was the only one sacrificed. I want to know, I said, what made you do it? Really? She sat on the edge of her warm couch. Chief promised me you'd go to school abroad. He said he'd marry you legally. He gave me money for your brother's surgery, money I couldn't find anywhere else. I stared at her. You could have asked me, I whispered. I would have found another way. I would have walked, cleaned floors, anything. But you didn't even ask. She looked up, eyes wet. Because I knew you'd say no. And that was it. The truth I came for. Not an apology. Not remorse. Just fear. And failure. That night, I walked away from my mother. I didn't know where my life was going yet. But I knew where it wasn't going, back. I had a new name now, thanks to Bola's friend. A place to stay. A job at a hair salon in Suralia. And a fire inside me I never knew I had. Because the worst had happened. I had been sold. But now, I was going to buy back my life. On my own terms. The girl I used to be. The first thing I did was cut my hair. Not because I wanted a new look, but because the girl who had walked into Chief's house with long, naive braids was gone. I watched each strand fall into the salon sink like tiny pieces of my past. By the time Bola was done, I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. Short curls. Ardent eyes. And a new name on my lips, Amara. Suralia was noisy, restless, and far from glamorous. But for the first time in years, I was invisible and that felt like power. I worked at Mama K's salon. It wasn't fancy, but it had spirit. Women came there to gossip, cry, laugh, and start over. I swept floors, washed weaves, and learned how to thread eyebrows like a pro. And slowly, life became routine. One evening, as I sat outside the salon braiding Bola's hair, I saw her. The girl I used to be. She stood across the street, dressed in a sparkling gold dress. Face beat to perfection. Expensive heels. The look of someone about to be sold at another high-table event marked as a birthday party or dinner with elites. Her eyes scanned the street nervously, holding a clutch too tightly, heart pounding beneath a corset. I knew that fear. I had won it too. She crossed the road and walked past me, barely noticing I was there. But I couldn't help it. You don't have to go, I said softly. She paused. Whatever they promised you, it comes with chains. She turned sharply, eyes wide. Do I know you? No, I replied. But I know what's waiting behind the tinted cars and perfume. It smells like money, but it tastes like blood. She stared at me for a moment. Then walked away. But I hope the words followed her. 2 months passed. I saved every kobo I could. Bola and I became sisters, survivors of 2 different wars but soldiers in the same battle. One day, I got a surprise visit. From Elle. The boy I had crushed on back in secondary school. He had been quiet, brilliant, a little awkward, but kind. We lost contact after graduation, life pulling us in different directions. Now he was standing at the salon doorway in a crisp shirt, laptop bag slung across his shoulder, staring at me like I was a ghost. Chioma, he asked, using my real name. I froze. How did he find me? It's Amara now, I whispered. He smiled. You always hated your name. I tried to smile back, but my hands were trembling. He stepped closer. I saw you at the market last week. I wasn't sure, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. We sat behind the shop and talked for hours. About school, dreams we abandoned, the lives we lived when no one was watching. He didn't ask for the full story, but he saw it in my eyes. Pain. Regret. Survival. I'm working with an NGO now, he said. We help women escape abusive marriages. You'd be perfect for our women's outreach. I laughed bitterly. I'm not a role model, Elle. No, he said gently. You're proof that people survive. That night, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because someone saw me and didn't flinch. Maybe I wasn't just the girl who got sold. Maybe I was becoming something else. The return of the beast. It started with a whisper. One of the salon girls came rushing in one morning, face pale and shaky. Madam Amara, someone is asking for you outside, black Prado, tinted windows. My heart stopped. That description could only mean one thing, Chief. Bola dropped her comb. Don't go, she whispered. Please. Let's call someone. Elle maybe. But I was already walking outside. I had to face him. There he was. Dressed in his usual all-white senator wear, his bodyguard leaning against the jeep like a shadow. He looked thinner, colder, like power had fermented into something darker. Amora, he said, smirking as he leaned on the bonnet. Or should I say, Chioma? I didn't respond. I heard you've been playing hairdresser in the trenches, he said mockingly, then stepped closer. You think you can run? You think you can hide from me forever? I didn't flinch. I'm not hiding, I said. I'm healing. His smirk disappeared. I didn't come here to talk feelings. I came to offer you a deal. I laughed. You think after everything you did to me? I'm not asking for you back, he interrupted. I'm asking you to keep your mouth shut. He reached into his pocket and threw a thick brown envelope on the ground. That's 2 million naira. Take it. Start a new life. Disappear. I stared at the money. Then at him. You destroyed Amina. You almost destroyed me. Now you want to pay me off? I'm offering you peace, he said flatly. No, I replied, voice rising. You're offering me silence. And that's something I can't afford anymore. He narrowed his eyes. You talk, you die. I stepped closer, chest to chest. If I die, your whole world burns with me. That night, I couldn't sleep. The visit had shaken me, even if I didn't show it. The fear came creeping back, the one I'd buried under new clothes and fake courage. But I wasn't alone. Elle showed up. He held my hand. No questions. No judgment. We'll report him, he said. We have lawyers. Protection. You're not his anymore. I nodded. But deep down, I knew Chief wasn't the type to go down without dragging someone into the fire. So, I made a choice. I went live. With a shaky hand and tears in my eyes, I recorded a video. I told my story. From the beginning. No names, just the truth. The pain. The betrayal. The chain of women bought, used, and discarded like trash. Within 24 hours, it was everywhere. NGOs picked it up. Women started commenting, sharing similar stories. Anonymous blogs tried to guess who the chief was. The lion was wounded. And the hunter had become the hunted. But I didn't feel safe. Not yet. Because when you touch a beast, even from afar, it eventually roars. When ashes begin to speak. 2 days after the video went viral, the police showed up. Not to arrest me, but to protect me. Someone had broken into the salon the night before. Nothing was stolen, but a single note was left under my chair. You're staring ghost. The handwriting was unmistakably his. The news outlets started circling. They didn't have Chief's name yet, but they had enough hints to shake Lagos elite. Suddenly, I wasn't just a hairdresser. I was a whistleblower. A storm. A woman whose voice cracked the mask of a monster. Elle stayed close. Always one step ahead, managing calls, securing interviews, drafting statements with the NGO's legal team. But I saw the worry behind his smile. He knew the fire we'd lit couldn't be put out easily. Then came the shock. An email. Subject: I was once like you. No name. Just a voice. I saw your video. And I cried like a child. Because you told my story with your mouth. I was 17 when I was sold to him. He called me property. Said it with pride. I ran. He found me. Broke my leg and dumped me on a roadside in Bedigri. I survived. But my voice never did, until now. Attached was a photo. A scarred face. A single eye swollen shut. But it was the neck tattoo I recognized. Amina. My heart dropped. She was alive. We arranged a meeting. Elle booked a private room at a safe house in I corridor. I walked in, and there she was, older, quieter, wrapped in a large scarf. But the fire in her eyes, it matched mine. We didn't say anything for a while. We just held hands. I thought you were dead, I whispered. I was, she replied. But pain has a funny way of reviving you when vengeance is unfinished. She gave me everything: dates, names, locations. Proof. The type that couldn't be denied in court. Amina had documented it all, silently waiting for the day someone would scream loud enough for her to speak again. That night, we made a pact. We would bring him down, not just for us, but for the girls still trapped in luxury cages, mistaken for queens while being treated like prey. A few days later, Chief's name finally surfaced online. Chief Obinna Umidi. Top businessman. Influential socialite. Philanthropist. But now, his name was attached to something else: predator. The backlash was immediate. Sponsors pulled out. Events got cancelled. Rumors began to flood the media. And slowly, the fortress he built on silence started to crack. But it wasn't over. Because men like Chief didn't go down with grace. They drag you with them. And in the next chapter, he tries. Fire before the fall. The day started with laughter. Amina had spent the night at Bola's place. The three of us sat on the rug eating roasted corn and groundnuts like teenagers, giggling at a silly Yoruba movie. For once, there was lightness in the air. Hope. Like we were finally climbing out of the grave. Until we heard the explosion. It wasn't massive, but it was close, too close. We ran outside, hearts racing. The salon was on fire. Flames leaked through the windows like red tongues, eating through the walls we had rebuilt with sweat and survival. Mama K's signage collapsed with a groan, and the air filled with the thick stench of burned dreams. People screamed. Bola cried. Amina froze. And me. I knew exactly who had done it. The fire department came late, as always. The damage was total. Someone had broken in, poured fuel through the back, and left behind a single item on the counter. A lighter, with the Umidi Group logo etched on its side. No one needed further proof. We went straight to the NGO's legal team. Amina submitted her recordings, secret conversations with Chief, old documents, photos, even hospital reports from her assault. My video, her evidence, and the arson became a storm of firepower. The case was building faster than we imagined. But the scariest part. Chief hadn't gone into hiding. No. He was still moving freely, attending underground events, sending veiled threats to witnesses. Money was buying him time. But the walls were closing in. Then came the final blow. a high-profile journalist, Chidra Okoye, contacted me. She wanted to air a televised interview, primetime, nationwide. No blurs. No voice distortion. Face and truth raw. I hesitated. But Amina squeezed my hand. "It's time," she said. "Burn the mask. Let them see your scars." The night of the interview, my hands trembled as they powdered my face. But when the lights came on, and the camera rolled, I told it all. The marriage, the chains, the auction nights, the fire. Every betrayal. Every bruise. Every cry muffled by satin pillows. And when I finished, I looked straight into the lens. To every girl who's ever been sold behind closed doors, this isn't just my story. It's yours. And we are not afraid anymore. The internet erupted. Within hours, the interview hit over 6 million views. Hashtags trended globally. Hashtag I am not property took over TikTok, Instagram, X. More women came forward. Some with names. Some with scars. Some with graves to mourn. The revolution had a face. And it was mine. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and thought about my mother, the woman who sold me for her own comfort. I hadn't spoken to her since I escaped Chief's house. But I felt it deep in my bones. She would be the next ghost to return. The mother's wound. It started with a knock. I opened the door expecting Elle or Bola, but froze when I saw her. My mother. Mama Stella. Older now. More wrinkles. Her wrapper loose, slippers worn, and eyes swollen from tears that didn't dry. For a long moment, we stared at each other, two strangers tied by blood and betrayal. "Chioma," she breathed. "Please, let me explain." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stepped aside and let her in, not for her comfort, but for closure. We sat in silence. The air was thick. Then she spoke. "I didn't sell you because I hated you," she began, voice cracking. "I did it because I thought it was the only way to save you." I turned sharply. "Save me? You threw me to a man old enough to be my father." "I was drowning," she cried. "Death everywhere. Your younger siblings starving. I begged your father's people for help, they cursed me instead. Called you a burden. I was desperate, Chioma. And Chief, he offered more than money. He offered power. Stability. I thought if you married him, you'd become untouchable." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Instead, I became a prisoner. She sobbed, covering her face. "I watched your interview, every second of it. And I wanted to die. Because I realized I didn't give you away to survive. I gave you away to silence my own shame." She knelt beside me. "I'm not here for forgiveness. I'm here to carry your anger. To say I'm sorry, not with words, but with my life." I didn't know what to feel. Hate. Pity. Love. I stared at her, this woman who bathed me, fed me, then handed me to a predator like a plate of rice. But I also saw her pain. Her emptiness. Her own wounds that hadn't healed. "I survived, Mama," I whispered. "But a part of me died. And I don't know if I'll ever get it back." She reached out, touching my knee. "Then let me help you bury that part, and help you rebuild the rest." We talked for hours. About everything and nothing. She told me things I never knew, that she too had once been married off at 16. That her silence was taught. That she thought she was protecting me by repeating the cycle. Generational trauma disguised as tradition. By morning, I didn't forgive her. But I saw her. And that was a start. Later that day, the arrest warrant for Chief Obinna Umidi was finally issued. The charges, human trafficking, domestic abuse, sexual exploitation, arson, and attempted murder. He didn't show up at court. He vanished. But this time, the whole country was looking for him. And next, we chase him into the shadows. The final prize. Chief Obinna Umidi vanished like smoke. His mansion in Lekki. Deserted. His accounts. Frozen. His name. Now whispered like a curse in every corner of Lagos. But silence wasn't enough. We wanted justice. It was Amina who got the tip. A driver from Chief's old estate recognized him boarding a private yacht in Oja. No guards. Just a dark suit, sunglasses, and the same arrogance that once bought girls like us like handbags. We moved fast. Elle, Amina, and I contacted the authorities and the international watchdogs working with the NGO. Within hours, Interpol issued a red notice. Chief wasn't just a predator now, he was a wanted fugitive. And then came the call. We got him. They caught him in Cotonou, trying to flee to Morocco under a fake name. The images hit the news. Chief, in handcuffs, head low, being dragged off the boat like trash. Gone was the silk agbada, the gold chains, the smoke green. The devil finally looked like a man. And a man could bleed. The court trial was brutal. Witness after witness stepped forward. Amina testified. So did 3 other women hit silence with threats and money. The courtroom wept when a mother read a letter from her daughter, a 16-year-old who didn't survive him. I was the last to testify. Wearing a plain black dress, hair tied back, no makeup, just truth. I was 18 when he bought me, I told the judge. My mother signed the papers. My body was traded for bills. My voice was buried under satin sheets and screaming silence. But today I bury him instead. The courtroom clapped. The judge didn't. But she nodded. Chief was sentenced to life. No parole. No mercy. And in that moment, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. A few months later, I reopened the salon, this time, not just for beauty, but for healing. We called it Rebirth. A space for women like me and Amina to find each other. To rebuild. To breathe. Mama came every Sunday. She would sweep the floors and sit by the window, watching us laugh. She never tried to murder me again. But sometimes, when I passed her, she'd whisper, "I'm proud of you, Chioma." And somehow, it didn't sting anymore. Elle proposed under a mango tree in Elash. No crowds. Just waves, sand, and the man who taught me that love doesn't have to hurt. I said yes. Not because I needed saving, but because I had saved myself first. I tell my story now at women's shelters, universities, podcasts. I sign autographs, but I always sign the same words. Your scars are not shame. They are survival. Chioma Umidi, formerly sold, now priceless. The end.